So we're going to be covering chapter 15 today. It's a really critical chapter and it's considered the epitome of the Bhagavad Gita in terms of its knowledge. It's very much like the Upanishad, it is considered complete because there's three reasons. One is because knowledge is considered complete if it has knowledge on three aspects. Okay, one is Jeev, which is the individual soul or all creatures, individual creatures. The other is Jagat, which is creation.
Vinita, we lost your voice.
Oh,
Can't hear you.
why is that? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sumanji, can you mute your phone?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I was saying, knowledge is only considered complete if it has knowledge on three aspects. One is Jeev, which is the individual soul or all individual creatures. Second is Jagat, which is creation, and Ishwar. Ishwar you can think of as God or Brahman or very similar to Brahman, but it is just Ishwar is one which is sort of the first delegation from Brahman is to Ishwar. If you remember the Tattva Bodh, you'll remember Ishwar is essentially Brahman in Maya, but he's not separate or away from Maya, like Brahman is. How should I say that? You can think of like a huge sphere, and outside the sphere or outside the ocean, when you see space, right? That space you can think of as Brahman. But when you see the ocean, you can think of that ocean as Ishwar. Okay? So beyond everything, beyond name, roop, qualities, everything is Brahman. But that which pervades creation along with Maya, that is Ishwar. So in this chapter, there is knowledge on all three aspects. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to read through these verses and you will see how it flows. We may not be able to finish today, okay? But we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the first verse, I'll read to you. I'll read the translation, okay? I'm not going to... it's a very beautiful chapter. Actually, you should learn this by heart. Udva moolam adhashakam prahuravyam. So you must see, obviously when you sing these verses, you will feel a great depth, because I love singing the 15th chapter. Udha moolam madhashakam ashwatham prahuravyam chandamsi yasya parnani yastam veda savedavit. So this is talking, if you see a lot of places in Hinduism, in the Upanishads, this symbolism of an upside down tree, and in our dharma, people tree is used a lot to describe it. Okay. Someone needs to mute. Okay, so basically this is describing the people tree, an upside down people tree. Okay, so the wise. Why is this echoing? The wise speak of the indestructible Ashwatha tree, which is basically the people tree, as having its roots above and branches below, whose leaves are the Vedas, and he who knows it is the knower of the Vedas. So when it says it has the roots above, meaning above is the Brahman. Okay, so it's saying that basically the source of all creation is Brahman. That is why it says the roots are above. Okay? So that's where creation comes from. It comes from the highest. And then it sort of descends, So you have Brahman, which is the indescribable, and then from there comes the next layer. So from there then the creation descends. So roots are above, and then the branches are below, and the leaves are below, and that's how it's describing Maya, how it's describing creation, Prakriti, whose leaves are the Vedas. Basically, it's just saying that all this knowledge is everywhere in creation, dispersed throughout creation is the knowledge, is the wisdom. So it is not as though knowledge and Prakriti are separate. It is both together. It both is, exists together. Okay? So he who knows it is the So one who knows this, one who knows that the source is Brahman, the roots are above, and from there descends Prakriti, from there descends wisdom, from there descends everything, because the Vedas have also come from Brahman. And one who knows that is the knower of the essence of knowledge. So Ved doesn't mean that it's a book. Ved means the knowing, the wisdom, the one who knows these things about creation, about Jeev and Jivatma is the knower. Okay, then it talks about so basically below and above are spread its branches, nourished by gunas. So basically Maya or Prakriti pervades everything. It is everywhere. It is actually infinite. Okay? And this Prakriti is these branches, or the way creation grows and expands as the universe does. It is nourished by the gunas, the three gunas, sattva, tamas, rajas. So essentially, it is like, you have a dish, right? And that dish, or the soup you can call it, it is mainly of these three ingredients, which is sattva, rajas and tamas. So the combination, permutations of these three gunas is what perpetuates creation, which is the ingredients of this creation. Okay? And then the sense objects are its buds. That's how it expresses itself, is through the sense objects. Okay? The sense objects are the buds, and below in the world of men stretch forth the roots originating action. So then below that, in the world of men, stretch forth the roots. So basically, this is how the spirit, the consciousness comes and it descends and it takes it takes form. It takes form into men. You can think of like this river, or this this consciousness as lava, or as as a branch that is extending down and growing, and how it creates different leaves, it creates different flowers. And that is how we have descended as people, is that how this descent of consciousness happens, the spirit takes form as us, and that is the source of action as well. Okay, now verse number 3, it says, its form is not perceived here as such, neither its end, nor its origin, nor its foundation, nor its resting place. What it's saying is that you cannot perceive from where it has come, where it will end, what is the essence, what is the foundation of this creation. You cannot know in Maya. In Maya, you will never know the essence. You will never understand, because this endless, the beginningless, the endless that it is, the Maya that it is, there's no way, while being in Maya, while being part of the Maya, there is no way you can perceive it, you can understand it. Okay? But having cut asunder this firm-rooted avastha tree with a strong axe of non-attachment. So now it's saying, see, being part of this Maya, when you're so thoroughly engrossed in it, you can never understand its nature. But if you cut asunder, you see, but when you detach yourself, you separate yourself from this Maya, from this illusion that you are this body and mind and all these objects around you, when you take the stance away from it with detachment, using the axe of detachment or non-attachment, then verse number 4, that goal should be sought after, where having gone, none returns again. Meaning, once you taste that nectar, once you are established, once you experience the spirit, the consciousness, the source, the all-pervading being, then once you sense it, once you taste it, once you experience it, there is no way you can get delusioned or stuck or attached or affected again by Maya. So it says, I seek refuge in that primeval Purusha from which streamed forth from time immemorial all activity. So essentially, everything that you see, that is happening around you, that exists around you, the source is the Purusha, the ultimate, the absolute, the highest, right? The Para. So that's why, the highest goal is, I seek refuge in that primeval Purusha. Okay? And so see here, now it has described already the first aspect, which is Jagat. Okay? The Jagat has been expressed, that knowledge has been given in those verses. Now, verse number 5, it says, the wise who are free from pride and delusion. Now, this is the qualifications of the seeker of knowledge, this verse number 5. And it's a very nice verse. So, just pay attention, because this is something that, you can go back to and read again later on. The wise who are free from pride or ego, arrogance, self-centeredness, pride, and delusion. Delusion meaning those who think the unreal is real, those who think the impermanent, the changing is real, that everything around you is the only truth or the only reality. That is delusion. Who have conquered the evil of attachment. So what is attachment? Attachment means you have the rag or dvesh, you have this sense of ownership that this is mine, right? My child, my car, my job, this is what I did, my project. You're attached to your actions, you think you started something, somebody else ruined it for you. You have misery when you lose something or someone. That sense of ownership, that is me and mine, okay? That attachment, when you have conquered that, how do you conquer it? From Vivek, from knowing that it is impermanent. So you conquer that evil of attachment, who are totally free from desires. Meaning, you don't have wants, that I want this, I want that, I want that. Of course you have needs. You have the need to take a shower, you have a need to wear clothes, you have a need to eat, but not desire, like wanting more and more and more. I need this, I want this, and so forth, right? So those who have conquered desire, you see all these qualifications, and are free from the pairs of opposites such as pleasure and pain, rag and dvesh, the craving and the aversions, that you don't have such strong cravings and aversions. You have become still. You don't you don't get repulsed by something, or you don't have strong wants for something, so, or you don't get affected by opposites. You don't get affected by pleasure or pain, health or sickness. You don't get affected so much by outer changes, outer opposites and so forth, and are ever devoted to the self. So one thing is leaving the attachment to the outside, to the impermanent, and devoted or returning to the source, attaching yourself to your Atma, to yourself. They alone will reach that imperishable goal. Because if something is lacking in any of these things, the goal will not be reached. So these are the sort of qualifications or conditions that that happen, that it's not like hard work or something, but it's something that you attain through inner realization, through inner work, the inner sadhana. It is the inner effort, but it's not effort in terms of like physical effort or mental effort. It is a realization that you have through knowledge, through reflection, through awareness, through asking, through realizing, it's that inner sadhana, and it's a tapasya in the sense leaving attachment again and again, practicing it again and again by observing. See, I got affected by this. Like I got affected by, that you were attached to something or someone or some work you did. And when you feel that misery, you should reflect, okay, it has come from my attachment. So that is tapasya. How do you keep detaching? How do you keep detaching? While you keep working, while you keep living, while you keep doing everything and having relationships, but loving without attachment, doing without attachment, working without attachment, and attaining that slowly, that is the sadhana and tapasya. And as you increase in it more and more, then you will be more and more established in that bliss, in that imperishable Purusha. So that's a very important verse. And then if that is so, then now it's describing that Para Brahma. When you attain that which is the highest, it is neither the sun nor the moon nor fire can illumine that. That meaning Brahman. It is not it is self-illumining. There is nothing that can illumine it. It is like the sun, it's self-illumined. So that's why it's saying it's not, nothing physical, nothing like the sun or the moon can illuminate. So it's trying to describe the indescribable. It is saying that it is beyond all physical light. And one who has reached there will never return. Once they have touched that source, they will never ever be completely delusioned by this Maya, because they have seen it. It's like, some people have near-death experience. They have left the body and they have experienced this, basically they have seen their body travel out. They have gone to a different realm. They've seen the light. They've heard angels. They have, had masters speak to them. Whatever experiences they have, they can never forget that ever again in their lives. So it's something similar to that, like once you experience it, there is no way you can lose sight of it ever again. And so that is my supreme abode. It's saying that basically Sri Krishna is saying that as an avatar, he knows, he's saying that is my supreme abode. And then verse number 7 says, in eternal portion of myself, only a small portion of that self, having become a living soul, Jeev, in the world of life and abiding in Prakriti, gathers the 5 senses and the 6th, which is the mind. So the main thing it's saying is that See, the consciousness is so vast that the entire creation is merely a small portion of it. It's trying to describe that magnanimity of that supreme, of Brahman. Okay, so it has become the Jeev. It has in this world an abiding about. So so it's describing the process now to itself, the five senses and the sixth, the mind, and then it continues to 8th verse. When the Lord takes up a body, and when the Jivatma takes up a body, and when it leaves, the Jivatma takes these five senses and the mind and goes like the wind which takes the sense from its seeds. So essentially here is just describing the Jivatma, because the first few verses it talked about Prakriti, but here it's describing in these verses the Jivatma. So essentially it's just saying that it is the Atma that comes into the Jivatma, and when it comes with the five senses and the mind, and just like like a wind takes the scent of a flower away from the flower and leaves, just like that, when it's time to leave the body, the Jivatma takes these five senses and the mind, and it leaves the body like a wind. It exits the body like a wind, like the scent is taken away from the flower, from its seeds. Okay, so it's talking about how the Jivatma descends into the body with the senses and mind, and how it leaves the body. Okay, that's 8, and then 9. Verse number 9 is presiding over the ear, the eye, the touch, taste, and the smell, and also the mind. The Jiv enjoys the sense objects. So it is important to understand. I mean, obviously, knowing this intellectually will not help, but to understand that it is the Jivatma, the individual soul, that is enjoying this world, and through it the senses. See, if you don't have hearing, if you have none of the senses, right? If you can't see, if you can't hear, if you can't taste, touch, nothing, and if you don't have a mind, you basically you will have no perception of the world. You have no experience of the world. If there is no mind, there is no experience, correct? So as soon as you have the mind to perceive, and the channels for perception, which is your eyes, your mouth, and all that, so once that apparatus is there, the Jivatma, the Atma, can actually experience and enjoy this world. But the important thing to remember is that you are not the mind and the senses. You are not the sense organs. What happens is then we identify ourselves with the mind, with our thoughts, with our opinions, with our intellect, with all this. But it is the Atma that is using this apparatus to operate. So that's why, just reading this verse like that, once you reflect on it, once you break it down and you see who is the thinker, where are the thoughts coming from, where is the mind, how does this whole thing work, right? When you understand that there's a whole chain, and then you follow the source up, like up the roots of the tree, you'll see that actually it is coming from far beyond the mind, but that it descends into the mind. There is some spirit that descends into the mind that makes it function. So that is what it's trying to help you understand in verse number 9. And then 10 is, him who departs, stays and enjoys, who is united with the gunas, the deluded do not see, but they behold who possess the eye of knowledge. A person who is so involved in this world, who never reflects, who never thinks about anything beyond the physical, right? Anything beyond that can be measured, that can be seen. Then these, or even thoughts actually. Then if if they cannot see beyond it, they will never get to know. They will never even get to they don't even get to the point of asking, actually. Forget about even knowing. Even the inquiry doesn't even come to them, right? So they do not possess this inquiry or the knowledge, okay? So they're very attached, right? They're very attached to the experience, they're very attached to their physical bodies, their intellect and so forth. So then it says, the seekers, verse number 11, the seekers striving for perfection behold the Atma dwelling in the self. So the ones who can look beyond the physical, who inquire into the source of the mind, who say, who am I? What is the source of the mind? Those who strive to know the source, who strive to understand what more is there. There must be something more. Who look beyond the physical and who want to seek perfection and truth, they behold the Atma. The revelation is made to them. If you make an intention that I do want to know, I want to know if this is truly real, if there is something like Atma, I want to experience it. And when your seeking is so sincere, if your intentions are very single pointed, and a certain amount of purification, certain amount of preparation, like in verse number 5, certain amount of qualifications have been there, then there is no way but you will have Atma Darshan, you will have an experience of that vast blissful self that you are. That is you are love, you are bliss, you are all that is, and then you transcend this duality and you realize everything is one, that you are one with everyone. But the unrefined and unintelligent, even though striving, will not see that Atma. Okay? And then 12 is the light which is residing in the sun, which illumines. See, now it's describing, it's very beautiful, these few verses, 12, 13 and 14. They are considered sort of the central theme of the Gita. I mean, basically, if you can't recite the entire 15th chapter, at least you can recite these 3 verses, because they're sort of the core of the 15th chapter. Yada dityagatam tejaha jagadbhasayate khilam yatchandramasi yatchagno tattejo vidhi mamakam. That light which is residing in the sun, which illumines the whole world, and that which is the moon and in the fire, that light you need to know is mine. So it's saying, it's not talking about the physical light. It's talking about the light which is the non-physical light, the divine light, the supreme light, is the one that illumines the physical light. So it is essentially the light of consciousness that manifests the physical including the physical light. So that is what it is saying, that light that illumines the sun and illumines the whole world, that brings all of this world into existence, that divine light, that light is what consciousness is. And that is also linked to the syllable Om. See, when you recite Om is actually the vibrational aspect or manifestation of that light of consciousness. So vibrationally, Om makes you experience that divine light, essentially. So I had written about this, how Om is actually linked to and the vibrations and how it creates the vibration. So what happens is that it sort of triggers or it creates those vibrations which are basically brings about that divine light within you. So that's how Om is linked to this light of consciousness. And so 13, it's talking about how this light or the divine consciousness is behind everything that is manifest. Gama vishya bhutani dharayam yajmu dharayam gosh, I know this by heart. I'm Pushnami chaushadhi sarvaha somo bhutva rasatmakaha. So it says, permeating the earth, I support all the beings with my energy. So previously it's talking about the moon and sun and all the light that is of the world. But in this verse it's talking about how permeating the earth, I support all the beings with my energy. So it's all just talking about the same thing, how that same energy, that same Purusha is the one that is supporting all beings. So essentially that is the source or the oneness of all beings, is that one energy. And then having become, it is also the liquid moon, and the moon is the one that nourishes the herbs. Okay, so if you go into the individual words here, you will somo bhutva rasa atmakam. So basically it's talking about the rasa makaha. So it's a juicy moon. Basically if you even if you look in science, if you look at the herbs, right, you will study that actually herbs gets it at night time is when they get nourished. And there's a deeper science to that, because see, the herbs which get nourished by the moon, okay, they absorb sort of the transformed sunlight. So the sun is a great transformer of the sunlight, right? So it's sort of the sunlight which is transformed to a lower degree, and that light is the one that nourishes the herbs, and basically it is the herbs that will heal us. So indirectly it is the moon that is healing us. It is the light from the moon which is healing us. So there is a greater, science behind this, because what is it that the herbs absorb at night from the moon that gives them that potency that they have. But there is a deeper thing to it. Essentially it's just trying to tell you on the surface that the secret is being told here, that I nourish all the herbs through the moon, essentially. And then he'll talk about having become the fire, which is I abide in the body of all beings and associate with prana and apana, digest the fourfold food. So it's saying that it becomes the digestive fires. There are 5 digestive fires. It abides in the body, and that is what makes your food digest. And it is also the prana and apana, which is the in-breath and the out-breath, and digest the fourfold food. So there are 4 types of food, right? The sour, salty, bitter, and so forth. So the 4 types of food. So this fire that is it's talking about is the inner fires, the fires which are within the body. And so it is just saying that essentially what it's trying to describe here is that everything from the sun to the moon to the world to the jeeves, the digestive fires which are within you, all these beings, everything you'll see as a descent of that's one spirit, and there is no separation. Everything is essentially Brahman. There is no. So here what it is trying to tell you, see, first it talks about Maya, which is Prakriti, then it talks about Jiva. Now it's talking about the Jivo Brahmai. So basically Jiv itself is Brahma. There is no difference between Jiv and Brahma because of its description, because of the way it is describing this. the essence you should get out of it is there is no separation. Jivo brahmaiv na para. There is this famous 2.5 sentence quote by Adi Shankaracharya which summarizes it all in that. I don't know if you've heard it, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva na para. So essentially it's saying is that everything is nothing but Brahman. So that is what the essence of these verses are, of these particular verses are over here. So it is saying, I alone have become this. It's like, sometimes I talk to you about how the gold is the one which is, from which you make bangles and earrings and all this stuff. Finally, it's gold only. You just see it in different forms. So this is what it is trying to say here in these verses. And then in 15 it says, and I am seated in the hearts of all. From me are memory and knowledge as well as their absence. I am truly that which has to be known in all the Vedas. I am indeed the author of Vedanta and also the knower of the Vedas. So again it continues, but essentially here in 15 it's talking not only that is it the physical level, where it's the body or the digestive fires or whatever, but it is also the inner apparatus, the memory, the knowledge. I am seated in the hearts of all. The seat of the soul is your spiritual heart, and the spirit within you is nothing but the same as Brahman, and I am truly that which has to be known in the Vedas. The ultimate goal or the central theme of the Vedas is to know Purushaha, right? Is to know what is consciousness. That is the main thing to be known. And it says the same thing in the Purusha Sukta, that it is, if you miss that point, then essentially you have missed the point of the Vedas. The Brahma Gyan, the Atma Gyan, is the most important objective of this knowledge. So not only is the objective Brahman, but the author, now the author is not human beings or human mind. The author of the Vedas or the wisdom or universal wisdom is Brahman itself, because it's Brahma Gyan which has been delivered or which permeates all of creation. Its source is also Brahman. So I am indeed the author of the of Vedanta and the knower of the Vedas. So of course the knower, because that is the source of knowledge, it's knowledge itself. So obviously it knows the knowledge. But also you will see here later on in these verses, it is not that it is the source of knowledge, that it is knowledge itself and that it is the knower of knowledge, but it is also beyond that knowledge. It is beyond all of this. But here, as it's talking about everything that is created, is nothing but Brahman, that which is to be known, that which is the knower, and that which is knowledge is all Brahman. So the non-duality is being talked here about everything being Brahman. So that is the core theme of these few verses. So again, it's okay. I mean, we can read these verses and, it can be very theoretical and it can never seep into you. But it is the you have to contemplate on it, you have to experience it to actually realize that oneness. Okay. So it's not easy. This is the culmination of knowledge. So it's not easy to realize what is being said here. The thing is that if you do not realize that yet, it doesn't mean that you should not learn it. Knowledge is always, reading it and hearing it is always a preparation for that experience, so that you don't experience being ignorant of that knowledge. So when that experience happens to you, you can understand it, you will have an understanding of it. So you may not have an experience of it, or you may have had an experience of it. It doesn't matter, of that non-duality, of that oneness of all things, the feeling that everything is consciousness. Either way, knowing this is still important. And then verse 16 it says, two Purushas are there in this world, the perishable, Kshara, and the Akshara. So, all beings are perishable, and Kutastha is called the imperishable. So, it's talking about there are two things in this universe, like there's Shiva and Shakti, Prakriti and Purusha, Kshara and Akshara. So, there is that which is perishable and that which is imperishable, right? And then the next verse it says,
what does Kutastha mean?
Kutastha is the one that is imperishable, immutable.
But what is the common meaning of that?
That which does not change is Kutastha.
Oh, okay.
That which is immutable or unchangeable, which is permanent. Unchanging, Kutastha. So, Akshara is the imperishable and Kutastha is the unchanging. Okay. And then 17 says, but the Supreme Purusha, okay, Purushottam, called the higher self, is distinct. So see here in Shiva Shakti and Kshara, whatever, it is still two, correct? There is still two, the perishable and imperishable, that which exists and which does not exist. So existence and non-existence. You are still distinguishing between the two. So it is not absolute, right? If you're saying it exists, that means there is non-existence. When you say it does not exist, that means something still exists. So that is how Vedanta logic works. It's a little high level tark logic, or analysis. So sometimes it's difficult for people to understand, but it's a very scientific method. So when you say one thing and you imply something. So here the implied meaning is that if you say it is non-existence, it doesn't have form, it is formless, that means form, it implies that form exists. But the Purusha Uttam, which is the supreme Uttamaha Purusha, is the one which is beyond existence and non-existence. It is beyond that concept, because if you keep any concepts, it means it is limited. It is still something you can conceive. Because it is unconceivable, it is beyond both of these. Do you get an idea of what is trying to say here, hopefully? And that imperishable Lord who pervading the three worlds, waking, dream and deep sleep, sustains them. So essentially what it's saying is that it is that Purusha Uttam, that Purushottam, that actually sustains all of this, the existence as well as non-existence, and the three worlds, meaning the three states of consciousness, all the threes, not just in the individual, but all the three modes, the three worlds you can think of as waking, dream and deep sleep, is what is being sustained by that supreme, by that absolute, that ultimate. So this is the reason why this chapter is called Purushottama Yoga. It's the knowledge that is being given in this chapter is about the Purushottam. Okay? And but I love singing these verses. If you get the audio, maybe I'll send you guys the audio. It's beautiful when you sing it. As I transcend the changeless and am even higher than the changeless, I am declared as the Purushottama, the highest Purusha in the world and in the Vedas. Same thing, but essentially what we covered. And then 19 it says, O Arjun Bharata, the wise one who thus knows me as the Supreme Purusha, he all-knowing worships me, his whole being. So, this, I told you about the Ishvara. So, now those previous verses that, were about Ishwar, that is where the third one is covered. So, this is why this chapter covers, first it starts covering the Prakriti, then it talks about the Jeev. So, so it talks about Prakriti, it talks about Jeev, and then it talks about Paramatma. So it's covered all three topics. Correct? You saw that, right? So all these three have been discussed here, and it says finally there is oneness. It's not like it's three separate things. It's essentially all of it is Brahman. All of it is Purushottamaha. The ultimate, the supreme is all of this. But its manifest form is Jeev and Jagat. And so the one who knows this, that knows me as that Supreme Purusha, he all-knowing worships me with all his whole being. So the one who knows this will worship you as such, always. But there are very few such wise people, unfortunately. And then 20 is, then it talks about the phala, the what do you gain by this? So, O Arjun, thus the most secret science has been taught to you by me. So it talks here, Guhyatamam, the most secret shastram idam. So here why is it secret? The reason why it is secret is because very few people will realize it. There are very few people who will understand it. It doesn't come through intellect, It is not something you can read in a book or something like that and you can understand it. The reason why it is a secret, because the answer lies in your soul, it lies in your heart. So a guru can only give you the key to unlock it, but you have to unlock that secret. So you're given a code, you're given some hint, but the real answer to this knowledge, only you can use that code to unlock that true knowledge, the true realization. So that is why it is a secret. It's a secret code. It is a secret science. It is something that you have to feed and ponder on, using these hints, using this knowledge, and unlock that chamber, because that knowledge is the fullness of it is within your own soul. It's in the seat of the soul. So Krishnji has given him the code, he's given him the key, and he says, I have given you the secret science, it's been taught. So knowing this, one becomes wise and all his duties are accomplished. Okay, now we can get into questions. If you have deeper, questions or any other things you want me to emphasize, because there's much more to this. So whenever you read knowledge, whether it's from the Bible or the Quran or from Ramayana or anything, always ask and see, does this knowledge, is this knowledge complete or not? Because when you read anything, whether it's the books on bhakti, or whether it's Kriya Yoga, or if it's a different sampradaya like Buddhism, Jainism, or anything. So ask yourself, does it give knowledge on Jeev, Jagat and Ishwar? If it's giving knowledge on all these three, it is complete. That knowledge is complete because there is no fourth. And if it covers one, it doesn't cover the others, then it's not complete because you'll still want to know. So that is why this Gita, this book, is considered complete in itself. There's nothing that needs to be added, there's nothing that needs to be removed. Each verse is important, each word is important, there's a reason why it's there. And nothing can be removed from it actually because it'll make it incomplete. And
so what was it? Jeev, Jagat and
Ishwar.
What was Jeev, Jagat and
Ishwar. So these are the three things, right? So one is Ishwar, right? You can think of it as Purusha or Ishwara, Brahman or whatever, or God. In English terms, you can think of, you need to know about God, about creation and about individual. So when it has knowledge on all these things, God, on creation and on the individual, then it's complete. That knowledge is complete. And that PDF I sent you guys on the summary, I sent you guys last week, right?
Yeah.
Read the summary of the 15th chapter in that. It's very well summarized there. Very, very well described. Everything, it's just in a page or something like that. The whole thing has been covered. So I'll read it briefly here. So in the first two verses, in the first 2 or 2.5 verses, Krishnji describes the vast and endless samsara, right? By comparing it with the Ashwatha tree, the people tree. Like this tree, the samsara is vast, many branched, well rooted and not easily destructible. To add to this is its mysterious nature. And what happens is, the jeev is caught up in this samsara, helplessly struggling to free itself, right? So what happens is it's like, we get into the weeds, we get into the mud, and then, we're totally lost, we're delusioned, we're caught up in all this maya and samsara, and we're helplessly struggling to free ourselves. And then in the next 2.5 verses, up to the 5th verse, Bhagavan talks about the means to get out of samsara, right? With the axe of detachment, cut off the roots, it says, right, in that verse. Then the first step is to develop detachment from the samsara, right? Like it gives that simile of using the axe. You develop detachment from the samsara. If alone you can work on this, it's great. It may take a lifetime to just develop this detachment by recognizing its binding nature. So how do you develop detachment? Here it says by recognizing its binding nature, that you get attached to it. You get attached to objects, to people, places, things that you do, things that you create, things that you feel are your own, right? That's one thing. But the other thing is also having the vivek, that everything is impermanent, everything is changing, everything will die and go away or whatever, right? So recognizing its blinding nature. As long as one has value for worldly pursuits, one's mind will not be available for seeking freedom. Now, having withdrawn the mind from worldly desires, one should seek Brahman, which is who is, or it is the cause of everything. Seeking Brahman is nothing but Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is about knowing Brahman, the Brahma Gyan, right? Vedantic inquiry under a guru. Then Krishnji highlights the qualifications in verse number 5. qualifications necessary for this knowledge, freedom from reaction towards pairs of opposites. We always react to opposites, no? Health, sickness, this, that, whatever. Pride, delusion, attachment, as well as commitment to Vedantic inquiry are emphasized in verse number 5. Then in verse number 6, the Lord talks about the nature of Brahman. It is not illumined by anything because it's self-effulgent. Consciousness is self-illumined, which illumines everything. Even the sun and the moon is everything, the fire is illumined by that light of consciousness. Attaining this Brahman, the supreme abode of the Lord, right, of the abode of Sri Krishna, of Ishwar, Brahman is the abode, is the source, is that's what they are, established in that. One never returns to samsara again. Once you're established in it, once you've tasted it, once you've seen it, experienced it, you can never get delusioned or attached or bound with the limited experience. You've experienced the unlimited. Then in the following, in the sections that follow, Krishnji reveals that Brahman alone expresses in the form of Jeev and Jagat, right? From this it becomes clear that reaching Brahman does not involve travel, meaning you are Brahman, it's not something you have to attain. You are already enlightened. So you don't have to attain something. You are already that. So from verse 7 to 11, Krishnji shows that Jeev, the consciousness in every being, is the Lord's expression only. Jeev and Atma or Jeev and Ishvara are the same thing. And at the time of death, this Jeev alone takes the mind and the sense organs from one's body to another body. And it is this Jeev who experiences everything through the sense organs. Remember I was telling you that it is your Atma only that's experiencing everything. Then thus the Lord alone is expressing. That means if it's the Atma expressing, that the Atma and Brahman is the same thing, Ishvara is the same thing. Atma and Ishvara are not two separate things in the absolute sense, right? So it is nothing but God Himself alone expressing Himself through your form. In every life, it is only God expressing and functioning through every being that exists. So the pure-minded people recognize this divine essence in everything, in everyone, in everything. You know, they understand, they have the eyes to, they've realized, they can see it. And then from verse 12 to 15, Krishnji shows how the Jagat, the universe, is also an expression of Brahman. Not just Jeev, but also the whole of creation is nothing but an expression of Brahman, of the Lord, of Ishvara. The light in the sun and the moon and the fire is only Brahman. In the forms of sunlight and moonlight, the Lord sustains all living beings. And then all the digestive fires is the Lord who digests the food. The Lord alone is behind all mental faculties of knowledge and memory. He is the author and the content of the Vedas and the knower of the Vedas. We covered all that. So thus Krishnji reveals that Brahman alone is Jeev also and Jagat also, right? Hence reaching Brahman in the form is in the form of understanding only. So it is not that you have to do something, gain something, but it is an understanding of what is Brahman. So Brahma Gyan, when you have Brahma Gyan, you become Brahman. There is no difference. The moment you know Brahman, you become Brahman. You realize. That is why Jnana Yoga is given so much importance. Because there is no difference. The moment you know, you have realized that you are already enlightened. So it is nothing that you need to gain. Okay, hence reaching Brahman is in the form of understanding only. Understanding that Brahman is never away from either oneself or the universe. And then after that, in the next following 3 verses, Bhagavan reveals Brahman in its true nature. Brahman in the form of the manifest universe is called Kshara Purusha. In the unmanifest Maya, the same Brahman is called Akshara Purusha. And both these Purushas are relative. Relative meaning existence, non-existence, is that, manifest, non-manifest, right? It's relative. Beyond these two relative Purushas is the Uttama Purusha, the absolute. Because of its superiority, it's called Paramatma or Purushottama. It is imperishable, attribute-less Brahman, because of which everything exists. And then the concluding verses where he glorifies this knowledge and means of fulfillment and all this stuff. Okay? So we've gone over 15th chapter twice now.
Vinita ji, I have a question.
Yes.
Whenever death occurs in homes, it is always said that recite chapter 15.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since the jiva is leaving the body, is it first that it is told that you are nothing but the Brahman only? Is it the idea? I don't know.
Yes. It is to remember the true knowledge, so you don't get affected by death.
So that is the knowledge at that point of time is being conveyed. So
Exactly.
So the faculty of sound remains and life.
Yes. So, I don't know if it's covered in this chapter or not. Where is it? I don't remember. But see, there are three senses that remain for few days. The sense of hearing,
Sound, yeah.
the sense of sight,
And sense of sight and sense of sight.
smell. So they can the jeev when you leave the body, because you're not the body, when you leave the body, you can see, you can hear, and you can smell. You can't taste or touch, right? So it is for the jeev also, but it is also for the people who are there to understand that everything is Brahman anyway. The jeev, Jagat and Ishvara are one anyway. There is no death as such. It's simply that it says, not like the wind, takes the fragrance of the flower away from the flower, so the Jivatma takes this Jiva, this five senses and the mind. So there's a separation of the physical body, and then the mind and the senses of perception, the five senses, leave the body like fragrance, literally like, how you see when you have an incense stick and you see the mist rising above, like that, just like that, the body remains, and you simply leave, like the fragrance leaves the flowers, you simply leave. That's it. That's nothing great. I mean, nothing happens to you, you're untouched. But that's why it's recited.
Okay.
But why does it say that those three senses still remains after the Atma has already left the body? Isn't Atma is the only essence of whatever you are?
No. You retain your subtle body. You retain your
But over a
subtle.
period, what's the you can explain it that because the causal body and the earlier one, the super, so that is the first vasana there, and then the causal body. So till then these things remain.
Yeah. Causal body remains till the jeev remains. But even there are three layers, right? You have the Stula Sharir, which is your physical body. Then you have your subtle body, which is the prana, but the prana leaves, it doesn't stay with you. The subtle body, the higher aspects of the subtle body, which are your senses of perception. Because see, you're not thinking with the physical body. When you dream, you're not dreaming with the physical eyes. When you dream, okay, very similar to when you dream. When you dream, you can hear, you can see, and you can smell. But you can never touch or taste in a dream. So the subtle body, right? The subtle body leaves with you, and it stays for a certain time till you go a little further up, at that time you cannot hear, taste and feel. I mean, hear, smell or see. It leaves you. Those senses of perception leave after, I don't remember how many days. But that's why, yeah, Tervi is very important, because basically after Tervi, for sure, you have transcended. But your causal body remains. A lot of the mind also remains. So that never leaves you. I mean, that is how the Jivatma exists. It then goes into the next body.
Details are covered in Katha Upanishad to some extent.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, Katha Upanishad is actually the mother of the Gita. We should study the Katha Upanishad actually. Have you studied it, Katha Upanishad?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, I should revisit it. It's been a while since I studied it. So I studied it with Swami Chinmayanand. He's given an awesome commentary on it, on Katha Upanishad. Yeah. Okay, it's an hour. I'll switch off the recording.
It was very nice.